Hi, this is Daryl Meyer from Keller, Texas. Today is Thursday, October 21st, 2010. Got a lot going on today, so let me get right to it so I don't run out of time. This first story out of IsraelToday.com. It's a poll they did. It said Israelis want peace, Palestinians want war. Well, there's a big shock. It says a joint survey of Israelis and Palestinians published today once again revealed what just about anyone with any common sense has long known. Israelis want peace while most Palestinians want conflict. Conducted by the Harry S. Truman Research Institute for the Advancement of Peace at the Hebrew University and the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research in Ramallah, the poll asked roughly 2,000 Israeli Jews and Palestinian Arabs if they believe the current direct peace talks should continue. An overwhelming 78% of Israelis said the talks should continue, though at present only 5% had any hope they would result in an actual peace agreement. By contrast, only 30% of the Palestinians wanted the peace talks to continue, while 41% said they support a return to armed violence against Israeli Jews. 63% of Israelis said they fear another explosion of terrorist violence in the very near future. Also in Israel Today, Palestinians' true intentions are made known on the internet. It says since Western leaders regularly ignore everything printed in the Arabic press and sidestep the contradictions presented by Arab opinion polls, researchers for the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, FDD, decided to go to a source no one today ignores, social media, to find out what the Palestinians are really thinking. Western media and politicians like to paint a picture of widespread moderation and liberalism in a Palestinian society that is frustrated but just wants to live in a peaceful coexistence with Israel. But after conducting a lengthy survey of Palestinian participation on websites such as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, the FDD research found that the Palestinian web landscape is dominated by radicalism. I'm not going to read all this, but it goes on to say how they reject Israel and Palestinian society, how they believe, let me see, there was something that really stood out, how they believe that killing Jews, Israeli Jews, oh here it is, an equal number of Palestinians believe that murdering Israeli Jews is a legitimate part of the process. Murder is legitimate, only of Israeli Jews. And also, they will not see the creation of a Palestinian state in Judea and Samaria as an end to the conflict, but will further advance their cause. You know, I've been telling you this for nearly 2 years now. The Palestinians do not want peace. They just want to see Israel wiped out. And a fake peace is their next step to fulfilling what they really want to do. So all this talk, all this positioning, all this, everything they're doing right now isn't for real. It's not a deal they're going to feel obligated to carry through. And basically they just want to get another foot in the door, get closer to be able to bomb Israel even more. This is not for peace. Israel should reject the Palestinians outright. They should walk away from the talks. They should say, you're not getting anything. We're keeping the Israeli land intact and keeping it together. And if you don't like it, do something about it. That's what they should do, because then true feelings would really start showing. I don't like fake people. I don't like being lied to. And I see the Palestinians doing nothing but lying. Here's something out of Arutz Sheva. You may have seen this. This was on several sites. But the headline says, Call to destroy Israel by any means in Washington, D.C. American professor Kakab Sadeke recently called for Israel to be destroyed by any means necessary and issued a warning to Jews as well. Sadike spoke over Labor Day weekend at an anti-Israel rally in Washington, D.C., but received little notice at the time. He said, We must stand to defeat, to destroy, to dismantle Israel, if possible by peaceful means, Sadike said. His comments were captured on film by the investigative project on terrorism that publicized them only recently. Perhaps like Saladin, we will give them enough food and water to travel back to the lands from where they came to occupy other people, Sadike continued. He called on Muslims to unite and rise up against this hydra-headed monster which calls itself Zionism. So here's a guy speaking out saying Israel should be wiped out, they should be kicked out, they should be dismantled. And he did this in America. Yes, I know, we have freedom of speech. Yeah, I thank God for that. This guy goes on to say, though, he says he denies the Holocaust ever took place. Okay, first of all, I have to just say, idiot. Okay, it clearly took place. It's an actual event. There's thousands of pictures. There's all kinds of proof that it happened. You know, the Germans have admitted it, and they're the guilty ones. Anyone that says the Holocaust didn't happen, I'm sorry, has no truth in them. They're just a complete moron and an idiot. Yes, I will speak my mind because I too have freedom of speech. It works both ways. Here's a story out of Yahoo.com. It says Palestinians mull alternatives to peace talks, including UN recognition. This out of Tel Aviv is with Israeli-Palestinian peace negotiations in limbo over a dispute regarding settlement expansion. Palestinians are starting to think out loud about possible alternatives to peace talks. After investing all of his political capital in talks with Israel, what would Mahmoud Abbas and his Palestinian Authority do if he concludes there's no chance for a deal with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? Scenarios range from a new armed uprising against Israel to a dissolution of the PA to a renewed drive for a unity government with Hamas, all of which would ratchet up uncertainty in the Middle East and complicate efforts to resume talks. This next story, though, kind of goes further into that. This is out of IsraelNationalNews.com. It says The Hague hears arguments on a Palestinian state status. The International Criminal Court at The Hague heard arguments on yesterday, for and against granting the Palestinian Authority the rights of a state. The Palestinian Authority wishes to sue Israel over Operation Cast Lead of nearly 2 years ago, in which Israel attacked Hamas-run Gaza in an attempt to stop incessant rocket fire and shell fire into Israeli territory. Only states are permitted to file suits in the International Court, however. First of all, how stupid is this? Okay, the Palestinians are lobbing rockets and missiles into Israel, over 9,000 of them, over a period of a couple of years, and then Israel finally, I don't know why it took them 9,000 plus rockets and missiles to finally get fed up, but they get fed up, they go in, they say stop it, they wiped them out, and they took care of business. And then Hamas goes and cries to the World Court and says, we want to sue them for their aggression into us. Really? So in response to their illegal missile firings, they're going to complain about what happened. Just makes my blood boil the way these people operate. But here's the big thing. If they win here, said one of Israel's advocates in the case, Dr. Dor Gold, told the New York Times, the big story that will come out of this is that one of the main legal bodies in the international community, the International Criminal Court, acknowledges that the Palestinian Authority already constitutes a state. So we need to keep an eye on this, because if they decide in the Palestinian Authority's favor, then they're basically saying, we recognize the Palestinians as a state. Tricky and scary. Still, God bless Benjamin Netanyahu. He needs our prayers. I don't know how he does what he does. I would so not be able to handle it the way he does. I so wouldn't. Here's a story out of PressTV.ir. Iran war would end humanity, says Fidel Castro. I'm not going to read the whole story, but he basically says, with nuclear weapons, if anyone, the U.S. or Israel, does a strike against Iran, there will be a global nuclear war that will wipe out humanity. Castro, yeah, he's getting on up there in age, but he makes a valid point. Here's something out of Yahoo.com. Iran and Venezuela leaders seek a new world order. I know this came out a few days ago, but I wanted to speak on it then, but there were some other things I just had to throw in there, and 15 minutes isn't a lot of time when you want to dedicate at least a third of that to Bible study. This out of Tehran. The leaders of Iran and Venezuela held what they called their strongest strategic relationship on Wednesday, saying they are united in efforts to establish a new world order that will eliminate Western dominance over global affairs. But you know what? They go on to contradict themselves. Let's see. What was it they said? Here we go. Okay, Iran and Venezuela are united to establish a new world order based on humanity and justice, I'm a nut job said, repeating his predictions that those who today seek world domination are on the verge of collapse. Okay, they're seeking world domination, then he goes on to say those who are doing so are on the verge of collapse. Funny. Okay, this out of rttnews.com. The U.S. warns against Middle East nations arming Hezbollah and Hamas. The United States has warned countries in the Middle East that are supplying weapons to military groups such as Hezbollah and Hamas to stop it. So, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton saying, you guys stop giving weapons to these people trying to do these bad things. Cut it out, you guys. You think they're going to listen? Psst, please. Okay, I'm going to skip that story just because of time. Okay, North Korea is planning a new nuclear test. This out of the telegraph.co. Don't know where or when, but they are planning a new nuclear test that has a lot of people very anxious, especially South Korea. I'm not going to get into that. I want to save some for some other things. Here's something that caught my eye. This out of pravda.ru. That's Pravda. Pentagon disappointed in the British lion. Okay, instantly I thought of Daniel 7:4. And if you look in the dictionary under lion, the symbol of Great Britain is one of the definitions. But Daniel 7:4, which coincidentally not, is July 4th when America became a nation. Daniel 7:4. America is in the Bible. A lot of people like to say it isn't. These are nations that are on the earth at the time of the return of Jesus Christ. If you read Daniel 7:4, it says the first was like a lion, Great Britain, and it had the wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood on 2 feet like a man, and the heart of a man was given to it. Ever hear of Uncle Sam? U.S., United States, Uncle Sam? United States is in the Bible. But this story just made me think of that. Anyway, okay, I've been talking about prayer. I want to go to Acts 16, verse 23 through 24, and that says, this was when Paul was thrown into prison. It says, after they had been severely flogged, they were thrown into prison, and the jailer was commanded to guard them carefully. Upon receiving such orders, he put them in the inner cell and fastened their feet in the stocks. Okay, so shortly after arriving in Philippi on his second missionary journey, Paul was arrested, beaten, and thrown into the local jail, along with his traveling companion Silas. Now what happened next had never happened before and will never be forgotten. Let's read verse 25 in Acts 16. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. Okay, so these two men, they lay chained, wounded. The Bible tells us they began to pray and sing hymns. Then suddenly the ground shook, the walls crumbled, the door swung open, and the bonds were broken. Acts 16:26 says that. Violent earthquake, the foundation of the prison were shaken. At once the prison doors flew open, and everyone's chains came loose. Okay. So it was an outpouring of God's power, but notice where it all began. It began with prayer. Okay? Notice how the Bible tells us that their prayers transitioned into praise and worship. There's an incredibly thin line between prayer and praise, especially prayers of adoration. Okay, after all, praise is the natural vocal extension of an attitude of adoration. Someone once defined the difference this way, that worship is the prayer of adoration at full volume. I know at my church, that's one of my favorite parts, the praise and worship. It's amazing. We have a great musical talent there. But the point for us to ponder is the close connection between prayer, praise, and the power of God that follows. Okay, it may not result in a jailbreak out like it did for Paul, but it may involve the breaking of some spiritual and emotional bonds. And it may include freedom from something so enslaving that we've stopped looking for the key a long time ago. Okay, God wants to set us free from those things. But we need to remember that it all starts with prayer. So if you have a problem with a boss, a job, a family member, an addiction, a habit, a sin, forgiveness starts with prayer. You know, in John 8:31 and 32, Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Well, in John 14:6, he tells us that he is the truth. If you don't know Jesus, I urge you to get on your knees and ask Him into your heart. God bless you. I hope to see you tomorrow.